Chapter 51. 51. Is this a firefighting drone? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 51. Is this a firefighting drone? Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Okay, Tang Rui, go and retrieve the fire drone first, the director suddenly said. Alright, Tang Rui quickly left the room, went to set up the bedsheets, and prepared to receive the drone. The group of people in the room looked at the director. There seems to be something wrong with this fire drone. No matter how you look at it, this thing doesn't look like firefighting equipment. The others said one after another. The director's face was already beginning to darken. Originally, he wanted to help Tang Rui. In the end. Was this your consumer drone? Shockwave extinguishing fire. That was an explosion. Stop talking. This thing isn't a firefighter drone. It's a missile. The director took out his phone. It showed the encyclopedia of the cruise missile. Everyone looked. Good heavens. They all looked similar. It didn't matter that it looked so familiar. From the news, Russia and Ukraine had been fighting with this thing. He couldn't remember it just now. They were all misled by the word firework. For a moment, everyone laughed. How interesting. He was displaying a missile under the eyes of the police officers. This kid was a little wild. Everyone looked at the director with a smile. If not for the director's suggestion, they would have left after checking the Skynet drones. Who would have thought? He could still see this scene. Bureau Chief Zhou didn't know whether to laugh or cry. In the end, this was not firefighting equipment at all. Old Chen, our fire department doesn't dare to purchase this kind of thing. It's not that I don't want to give you face. The director glanced at him and didn't say anything. If he had known this would happen, he shouldn't have made that call on Monday. After a while, Tang Rui returned to his room. He realized that there was something wrong with the way everyone looked at him. Tang Rui, is this a fire drone? The director asked. Yeah, it's a fire drone. Tang Rui braced himself and answered. Is it really a fire drone? It's a firefighting drone, the latest model of consumer drones. It's not a fire drone. You said it's not a fire drone. HNU and I are rehearsing our lines in the movie. Honestly, what is this? Patrol missile. Who are you going to sell it to? Russia and Saudi Arabia. This was another one of the bureau chief's tricks. Are you preparing to exit? Can this thing still be sold in China? Tang Rui looked at him in surprise. No, it's not. What I mean is, you made this thing to prepare for export. Yeah, didn't we sell fire tanks and rockets before? It's not too much for me to sell a firefighting drone, right? This is a private sale, that is. Can it be the same? Ednel.co. The chief felt a headache. If he had known earlier that this was the case, he would not have let Tang Rui display this plaything even if he was beaten to death. What should he do now? You said Tang Rui broke the law. He really didn't. They were researching drones and had not sold them yet. But this thing was too dangerous. As long as they filled it with 5 kilograms of explosives, it would explode in midair. Tang Rui said it just now. Its range of attack was an astonishing 20 meters. If this was used for a terrorist attack, the consequences would be unimaginable. Actually, one have a way to sell this. Tang Rui looked at the bureau chief's conflicted face and immediately said. You can sell it. Are you still in contact with foreign forces? The director was shocked. Tang Rui was speechless. Don't let your imagination run wild. Foreign forces. He didn't even know any foreigners, so how could there be foreign forces? No, I'm going to ask the military for help. Military. Really? The director didn't believe it. Tang Rui took out his phone and dialed Professor Yu's number. Hello, Tang Rui, what's the matter? That. Sir, I have a small problem here. Is there trouble again? Little troublemaker, it's just, Tang Rui briefly explained the matter and then handed the phone to the bureau chief. The director took the phone. It was unknown what Professor Yu said, but the chief nodded, and his expression looked much better. Very quickly, the chief returned the phone to him. 2 days ago, under the eyes of the military, I filmed the J.16D refueling in the air. It's only been a few days, and you're already showing off your missiles to the police. Professor Yu said in a teasing tone. I didn't do it on purpose. Isn't this a coincidence? Alright, let's talk about the performance of your missile first. Sir, I've created this patrolling missile, and its performance is absolutely strong. Tell me the specific data of the Valiant. Yes, the take-off weight is 12.5 kilograms, and the take-off weight is 5 kilograms. Explosive, killing range 20 meters. The cruising speed was 180 kilometers per hour, the cruising time was 45 minutes, the maximum range was 60 kilometers, and the diving speed was 230 kilometers per hour. It comes with a multi-computer intelligent program that can perform multi-computer data sharing calculations. Tang Rui reported the parameters of the firefighting drone to Professor Yu. Yes, the performance is not bad. The parameters on the surface have already surpassed the Witnesses and the Flick knife. When compared to Switchblade 2, it's not clear, but it looks pretty good. Professor Yu was very satisfied with the performance of the missile. Sir, can one sell this to Russia and Saudi Arabia? This is not something I can decide. How about this? 1 foot 11 inches ask you to find you tomorrow. You can bring the missile to test it out. We'll talk about it after the results are out. Professor Yu thought for a moment and said. Alright, sir, I'm sorry to trouble you. Next time, if you want to test it, go find the person who will look for you tomorrow. Don't mess around outside. Alright, one got it. He hung up the phone. Tang Rui looked at the bureau chief and found that the other party's expression was very complicated. This made him a little embarrassed. Originally, he was just being kind. In the end, to be honest, he couldn't be entirely blamed for this. It could only be said that this was a beautiful misunderstanding. Alright, since the inspection is done, hurry up with production and deliver it before the end of the month. The director waved his hand and said helplessly. Alright, I promise to deliver it before the end of the month. Tang Rui nodded and guaranteed. The chief didn't say anything after hearing this and left with his men. Remember to contact me the next time you develop a real firefighting drone. Before Bureau Chief Zhou left, he even specially patted Tang Rui's shoulder and said with a smile. Alright. Tang Rui nodded, as if he would really go and study the firefighting drones. After everyone left, Tang Rui sat on the chair. It was too exciting. President Tang, do you want us to drag the prototype back, or do you want to take it with you? At this time, the engineers sent by his senior brother walked over and asked him. Drag them back and hand them over to the police. Alright, then we'll go back first. Sorry to trouble you. No trouble. After they left, Tang Rui walked out unsteadily, lifted the launcher into the car, and drove away from the training base. Although the police inspection process was a little complicated. However, the matter was finally settled. Chapter 52. 52, Ridiculous. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 52. Ridiculous Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Tang Rui received a call from Julian Company. They had already carried out a preliminary screening of the personnel. Currently, there were still more than 100 resumes left, all of which met Tang Rui's requirements. After receiving this news, he turned around and headed to Julian Company. The recruitment matter could not be delayed. The renovation company was already finishing up. The factory would be completed in 2 days at most. Therefore, he had to get all the people on the team to avoid wasting his time. He arrived at Julien Company. Tang Rui was in the client room and began to flip through the resumes of more than 100 people. As a human resources service company, Julien Company's help in recruiting the company was not completely trustworthy. After all, they were only responsible for looking at resumes and conducting the first interview. They didn't know how to do background checks. The only thing they could guarantee was that there was no problem with the candidate's academic qualifications. As for whether there was a problem with their work experience, it was hard to say. When Tang Rui saw the first resume, he was a little stunned. "Are you sure this work experience isn't fake?" he asked, picking up the resume called Feng Xing. "Don't worry, President Tang. There's no problem with this person's work experience." "Is it really that ridiculous?" "Yes." Tang Rui looked at the lines of text on the resume and fell into deep thought. Why was he deep in thought? The main reason was that this person's academic qualifications and work experience were very impressive. It was even a little legendary. After graduating from Northwestern Polytechnical University, he entered the China National Aerospace Industry Corporation and worked for 5 years. Then, he moved to a private company and became the Chief Technology Officer. At this point, the atmosphere suddenly changed. 2 years later, he resigned and went to another private company. A year later, he resigned again and went to yet another company. He kept changing companies, changing 9 companies. The longest stay was 2 years, and the shortest was half a year. Why did he resign so casually? It wasn't that he liked to jump ship. It was because all the companies he worked for had gone bankrupt. It wasn't that something had happened at the company, something happened to the boss. In any case, as long as he joined the company, something would definitely happen to that company. Everyone knew how small the entire aviation industry was and how many companies there were. No one in the private sector dared to hire him. The state-owned enterprises were not afraid of him, but they wouldn't want him either. The research institute was even more selective. Therefore, he was now in a state where no one wanted him. He didn't dare. He was really afraid. There were some things that one would rather believe than not believe. Besides, he wasn't one of those top-notch big shots, and he was already in his 40s. Why would anyone choose him over the graduate students and PhD students who had just graduated? Why did you recommend him to me? Tang Rui raised his head and asked. Is this how Julien works? President Tang, please don't misunderstand. We're recruiting according to your needs. This Mr. Feng completely meets your special requirements, the worker replied calmly. Is this still acceptable? Yes, your special requirement is that the employee should have been through hardships. The tougher the experience, the better. So don't you think that this Mr. Feng fits this requirement very well? Tang Rui had nothing to say. This was no longer a matter of ruthlessness. He had practically been through hell. He lowered his head and looked at the resume. His qualifications were beyond words. However, this debuff was a little difficult to deal with. For now, let it be as backup. Tang Rui continued to read through the resumes. The subsequent resumes were more ordinary. They were all recent graduates. After working for 2 years, their initial passion had worn out. Now, they wanted to switch jobs to earn more money. He scrutinized them for a while. He selected over 40 resumes. He would interview these people. If they could come to an agreement, it would be fine. If not, then so be it. With these resumes in hand, Tang Rui left Julien. Upon returning home, he went down to the basement and continued assembling the 3D scanner. After 2 days of hard work, the equipment was almost fully assembled. It should be completed today. It took over 2 hours. The equipment was assembled. Swoosh. A faint light flashed. The system interface appeared. Item. 3D scanning device, experience. 0/900, origin points. 5.64, Tang Rui looked at the data on the system panel and felt very satisfied. In the future, this equipment could be gradually upgraded. There was no need for further enhancement. The current precision of this equipment was sufficient for his needs. Moreover, after assembling this equipment, he had earned 3.5 origin points. A definite gain. He set the equipment aside and checked the time. It was already past 5 in the evening. Let's go eat and then stick to our regular exercise routine. Tang Rui got up and left the basement. At night, Tang Rui, dressed for exercise, had just picked up the video call from Li Shuyao when he heard her say, "Did you flaunt your firearms in front of the provincial leaders and the bureau chief today?" Tang Rui's lips twitched. Is the news spreading that quickly? Almost everyone in our system knows about it, courtesy of the special police. Enough of this irrelevant talk. Let's warm up quickly. Tang Rui's expression darkened as he hastily changed the topic. Li Shuyao suppressed her laughter and didn't press further. She began to warm up. He worked out for an hour. Then, he took a shower. Finally, he donned his learning equipment and settled into bed for sleep. The next day, having finished his breakfast, he received a call. It was someone arranged by Academician Yu. He was to pick up this person and head to the military region's training ground for a simulated combat test of the patrol missiles. Naturally, Tang Rui had no objections. He immediately got into his car and drove to the training ground with the missile launcher. Tang Rui. It's me. May I ask who's calling? He was halted by the personnel at the training ground gate. My name is Zhao Ziyang. You can call me Senior. Hello, Senior. Are you one of the teacher's students? I graduated with a PhD from the same instructor last year. After a brief chat, they registered and entered the training ground. The training ground was vast and well maintained. There were 3 specialized training buildings. They arrived at a 7-story building. A company of soldiers was already undergoing training there. Senior, was this also arranged by the teacher? In a way, yes. Actually, they were assigned by the military to collaborate with our research institute for the live combat simulation test of the new weapon. I heard from my instructor that the performance of the cruise missile you developed is impressive, so I thought this would be a great opportunity to test it. Zhao Ziyang explained casually. With that said, he stepped out of the car and went to confer with the military commander. On Tang Rui's side, after parking the car, he began unloading the missile launcher from behind the vehicle. Junior, this is Company Commander Wang. Do you need their assistance to test the special features of your missile? Zhao Ziyang brought Company Commander Wang over and inquired. Company Commander Wang, greetings and apologies for any inconvenience. It's no trouble at all. The weapons you've developed are all meant to enhance our combat capabilities. It's no bother. Although Company Commander Wang was a sturdy figure, he was quite affable. This was only natural. He was here to collaborate with researchers. Sending someone with poor communication skills wouldn't be productive. After all, most researchers were not highly skilled in social interactions. Furthermore, the more skilled a researcher was, the lower their social aptitude tended to be. All right, I won't stand on ceremony. Let me give you an overview of the cruise missile's performance. Then, I'd appreciate it if Company Commander Wang could use his experience to increase the complexity. Only then can the detection mechanism truly be effective. Sure thing. Please proceed. Company Commander Wang nodded. Subsequently, Tang Rui presented the cruise missile's capabilities. Commander Wang asked questions. Some aspects he could explain. Others were beyond his capacity to clarify. After all, he couldn't provide an accurate judgment until he had actually detected the presence of the. I've got the general picture now. I'll head over and make the necessary arrangements. The missile should be ready to launch in about 10 minutes. With that, Commander Wang turned and left. Very well, I understand. Chapter 53. 53, Annihilation Mode. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 53. Annihilation Mode. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Tang Rui observed as Company Commander Wang led a company of soldiers into the training building, akin to a game of hide-and-seek. He decided to give them 10 minutes before embarking on his search. Turning around, he noticed Senior Zhao inspecting a missile launcher. Junior, between your patrol missile and the Setko's group peak system, which is more powerful? Zhao Ziyang inquired curiously. I can't say for sure. One haven't seen Sek's system, so I can't compare the parameters. But I suspect their system might outperform mine in a single drone due to their advanced technology. However, when it comes to multiple drones, especially over 100 drones engaged in simultaneous combat, I'm confident I'm stronger, Tang Rui replied after considering the question. He still retained a certain level of confidence in his creation, thanks to the multi-machine intelligent program enhancement in the system interface. Did you design this entire system? Zhao Ziyang asked with surprise. Definitely, Tang Rui responded without hesitation, emphasizing his dedication to the project. That's impressive, Junior, Zhao Ziyang complimented, acknowledging Tang Rui's comprehensive mastery of both hardware and software components. Tang Rui's curiosity got the best of him. Senior, what exactly is your research institute working on here? I can't reveal that unless the project fails and becomes worthless, just a ruse to deceive people. Then, I'd be glad to share more. But for now, you understand, Zhao Ziyang replied with a smile, implying the classified nature of his work. I get it. But if it's deemed a failure, could it still fool people? Tang Rui inquired, sensing a hint of personal bias in Zhao Ziyang's explanation. Why not? Let me tell you about the rumor circulating that the military has a new model of pocket drones. Have you heard of it? Zhao Ziyang asked. Are you referring to the drone smaller than a thermos flask? Tang Rui recalled a video showcasing a drone of such diminutive size. That's the one we're researching, Zhao Ziyang confirmed. I heard it's quite impressive, Tang Rui remarked, aware of the buzz surrounding these miniaturized drones. Not impressive at all. After real combat exercises, it was deemed useless and taken out of service. The information online is designed to deceive people, Zhao Ziyang explained. Tang Rui was intrigued. How so? That drone was tested by us, and it had no practical combat value. Its slow flight speed and limited intelligence made it incapable of effective obstacle avoidance. Soldiers found it no more useful than a cleaning robot. Even the suggestion to use it for grenade delivery was met with disdain by military personnel, Zhao Ziyang revealed with a chuckle. Tang Rui sensed a hint of personal vendetta in Zhao Ziyang's account. Seems like there might be some personal grievances behind this assessment. Perhaps. Anyway, one doubting Chan would take it seriously and continue developing it, Tang Rui mused. No worries. We've assessed it thoroughly. As of now, creating a practical miniature drone is beyond our capabilities. It would either need to deploy large quantities of patrol missiles for accurate strikes that make interceptions irrelevant, or it has to be further downsized to the size of a thumb. Anything in between wouldn't be viable, Zhao Ziyang elaborated. Tang Rui understood the rationale behind this assessment and agreed. He personally found larger equipment more interesting and was focused on completing his fighting drone project, aiming to mount drones that were several meters long. The conversation between the two continued for a while until Tang Rui glanced at the time. He proceeded to release a missile and activate the annihilation mode on the training building. With a dozen drones in play, they strategically approached the building. Instead of swarming the target, 2 drones entered the building, while the others circled around it. The drones quickly mapped the structure of the building's top floor, after which they divided into 2 groups, with one group entering the building and the other flying around it. Did you develop this system on your own? Zhao Ziyang asked curiously. Yes, why do you ask? What's the basis for its identification and decision-making? How did you program the cruise missile? Zhao Ziyang inquired. There are multiple sets of logic, including grouping, troop distribution, optimal attack range calculation, structural terrain analysis, and more, Tang Rui explained casually. That's a lot of logic. Can the system handle it all? Zhao Ziyang marveled. Absolutely. One have the core technology, Tang Rui stated confidently, crediting his multi-machine intelligence program. Zhao Ziyang praised Tang Rui's achievement, comparing it humorously to a small cow finding an elephant. I don't quite understand what you mean, Tang Rui admitted. I mean, it's incredibly impressive, Zhao Ziyang clarified with a grin. As the conversation continued, the patrolling missiles began identifying soldiers within the building. These soldiers had strategically positioned themselves to obstruct the missiles' paths, using camouflage nets to entrap them. Tang Rui's cruise missiles, however, had a different approach. Rather than targeting individual soldiers, they aimed for total annihilation. This was especially evident in the confined training ground. As the missiles adjusted their trajectories to engage the soldiers, Company Commander Wang realized the unfolding situation and ordered his troops to open fire. Nonetheless, hitting the swift-moving missiles proved challenging. Before long, all the soldiers were identified and targeted by the missile system. The 12 missiles synchronized their movements and headed toward the soldiers, concluding the training exercise. Chapter 54. 54. Feng Yuanqing joins the team. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 54. Feng Yuanqing joins the team. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. An entire day had passed. Tang Rui found himself on the training ground, accompanying the military to test the patrol missiles. During the first trial, Commander Wang was unfamiliar with the cruise missile's performance and was quickly defeated. Over the course of the next 6 drills, the best result achieved by the missile was the elimination of half of the soldiers. The worst outcome was only 3 casualties. Once they understood the cruise missile's performance and system logic, Commander Wang and the others started employing tactics against it. This left Tang Rui feeling quite emotional. His adaptability was truly impressive. It was no wonder the army had always held a dominant position, overshadowing even the Air Force and Navy in strength. When it came to territorial conquest, the army's significance remained paramount. As for our army, let's not dwell on it. Even when more than a dozen enemy hulls attacked together back then, they still fought, didn't they? However, it was regrettable. Now, everyone had become the type of person he had once despised the most. America had mastered infiltration while China had honed their cover fire skills. Junior, I won't see you off. Drive safely and come over to hang out when you have time. Zhao Ziyang waved farewell to Tang Rui. Alright, senior. I'll be leaving first. Tang Rui nodded and bid his goodbye. He got into his car and left the training base, with nothing else on his agenda. The fate of selling the cruise missiles depended on the military's decision. Today's drill had been recorded. Company Commander Wang and the others would need to write a report. They possessed the best understanding of the cruise missile's performance. Hence, their report would need to reflect their insights on the cruise missile. Tang Rui didn't need to be overly professional in his report. As long as he conveyed his first-hand experience facing the missile, it would suffice. Evaluating the cruise missile's performance and parameters was the task of the expert review team. Back at home, Tang Rui was far from idle. He had a stack of resumes from Julien that needed scanning into his computer. Celia, organize these resumes and send each applicant a message. Let them know about the interviews at the company tomorrow, scheduled between 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. and 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. Tang Rui instructed Celia after saving the resumes onto his computer. Filing in progress. Notification content edited, interview times arranged, and information sent. Upon receiving the command, Celia swiftly went to work, executing the task with impressive speed. It had progressed beyond the basic capabilities of a virtual assistant, being no longer limited to ordering food or providing navigation assistance. With these tasks done, Tang Rui proceeded to have his meal. Evenings followed their usual routine. Physical fitness training, downloading study materials, and getting ready for bed. The next morning, Tang Rui arrived at the factory. The renovation company was making excellent progress. If things went smoothly, they might complete the project that day. There wasn't much left to address, only a few minor details remained unfinished, and they would be tackled soon. President Tang, is there anything else you'd like to add or change? The renovation company's owner inquired, accompanying Tang Rui around the factory premises. No, your team has done an outstanding job. Tang Rui was genuinely impressed, he found no substantial issues to point out. In fact, the result exceeded his expectations. We're delighted to hear that. As long as you're satisfied, President Tang. Returning to his office, Tang Rui noticed its simplicity. A desk and a few chairs were the only furnishings. These items were kindly left behind by the previous owner, and Tang Rui had no qualms about it. It was merely a transitional period, there was little sense in overthinking the setup. Knock, knock. As he settled into his seat, someone knocked on the office door. Please come in. Tang Rui welcomed the visitor. The door opened, revealing a well-dressed middle-aged man in his early 40s. Hello, President Tang. I'm Feng Yuanqing. I received a message from the company, inviting me for an interview today. This was Feng Yuanqing. Tang Rui's interest was piqued upon hearing his name. He studied the newcomer carefully, finding him rather unremarkable. Mr. Feng, please take a seat. Thank you, President Tang. Feng Yuanqing sat down, his gaze equally assessing Tang Rui. Truthfully, without the prior notice, Feng Yuanqing wouldn't have believed he could secure a job opportunity in his field so soon. Seeing Tang Rui today, however, changed his perspective. It seemed this might be a case of a wealthy second-generation inheritor stepping into business. Who else would have the audacity to hire him, a proper businessman? Mr. Feng, I won't delve too much into your professional skills. I'd just like to ask if you've had any work experience in the past 6 months. Tang Rui examined Feng Yuanqing's resume, noting the 6-month employment gap. He couldn't fathom that someone like Feng Yuanqing had remained inactive for half a year. There must have been some engagement, even if minimal. Therefore, he was curious about Feng Yuanqing's activities during this period. Yes, I've been working at a construction site during the past 6 months. Feng Yuanqing answered after a moment of contemplation. At a construction site. Tang Rui was taken aback. Feng Yuanqing, a high-achieving graduate from Northwestern Polytechnical University, working on a construction site. Yes, Feng Yuanqing affirmed. Could you kindly share which company and construction site you were working at? Feng Yuanqing fell silent for a prolonged moment. I apologize. You needn't reveal this if you're uncomfortable. Tang Rui quickly reassured, noticing Feng Yuanqing's slightly perturbed expression. He had no intention of prying. It's all right. One was employed at the flower garden construction site at the start of the year. Flower garden construction site. The mention triggered a memory in Tang Rui's mind. The real estate company was embroiled in a whirlwind of activity surrounding the flower garden project. Although construction hadn't even begun for some of the buildings, nearly 500 units had already been sold. The scale of this endeavor was indeed impressive. I apologize for any inconvenience. No worries. Feng Yuanqing appeared unperturbed. Tang Rui recalled that he had once secured a boss's phone number through a friend's help, intending to assist in completing a project and earning some income. But upon revealing his identity, the boss had barred him from the company premises and even the premises vicinity. In comparison, Tang Rui's reaction seemed trivial. The building he referred to was facing substantial challenges. However, a key question lingered. Could Feng Yuanqing truly be blamed for the real estate frenzy? He had only spent 3 days at the construction site before work came to a halt. How was he supposed to reason with this? Alright, let's steer clear of that topic. Do you have any specific expectations for your compensation package? No, I don't. And how do you feel about working overtime? Overtime is fine, I can work whenever needed. Are there any reservations regarding working hours? No, I don't have any. Tang Rui observed Feng Yuanqing and was satisfied with his responses. As expected of a seasoned professional who had weathered societal challenges, his interview answers were impeccable. Very well. I welcome Mr. Feng to join our team. Tang Rui extended his hand, offering a warm smile. Thank you. Thank you, President Tang, for this opportunity to prove myself. Feng Yuanqing's voice trembled with excitement as he shook Tang Rui's hand with both of his. No need for thanks. Our collaboration is mutually beneficial. I believe in win-win situations. Indeed, President Tang. By the way, Mr. Feng, do you happen to have some free time today? What can I do for you, President Tang? If you're available, could you help manage the interview process? We've just established the company, and we're short on staff. Of course, I'd be glad to contribute. I'm eager to grow alongside the company. Tang Rui appreciated Feng Yuanqing's words, acknowledging his high level of awareness and understanding. Soon after, Feng Yuanqing began his duties. Meanwhile, Tang Rui resumed conducting interviews. Chapter 55. 55, A Plane of Unknown Model. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 55. A Plane of Unknown Modeled. Noel.n Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Tang Rui dedicated a day's worth of time to gathering all the employees in the company and treating them to a meal. Despite being questioned about why they didn't leave during interviews, these employees willingly remained to grow alongside the company. Let's become bigger and stronger and achieve even greater glory. Tang Rui exclaimed, raising his wine glass before the numerous employees. The employees promptly raised their glasses in response, showing their respect. After finishing his glass of wine, the atmosphere turned slightly awkward. These individuals weren't known for their conversational abilities, and that was precisely the type of people Tang Rui wanted, those dedicated to the company's growth. Do you have time tomorrow? Tang Rui inquired. I'm available. Tomorrow works for me. President Tang, I require your guidance. Taking a brief pause, Tang Rui then continued, excellent. Let's go shopping for office equipment and supplies together tomorrow. Especially computer peripherals, choose the brands you're familiar with. Thank you, boss. Your wisdom is impressive, boss. Following the meal, Tang Rui felt a sense of contentment. As the evening wound down, Tang Rui prepared to leave. Just as he was collecting his belongings, Feng Yuanqing approached. President Tang, I've arranged for a designated driver. Tang Rui was taken aback. Did Feng Yuanqing believe he would drive after consuming alcohol? Thank you. What could Tang Rui say? 5 minutes later, the designated driver arrived. As Tang Rui departed in the front passenger seat, Feng Yuanqing breathed a sigh of relief, hoping the new boss would be dependable and steer clear of trouble. The following day, Tang Rui led a team of employees to purchase office equipment, including simple desks, computers, and printers. Lab equipment was still pending. Given the nature of their work, high-end experimental equipment wasn't necessary. Upon returning to the factory, the employees set about arranging the office and assembling computers. Being tech-savvy, they required no external assistance for computer assembly. With the computers assembled, Tang Rui installed an upgraded version of the Hongmeng operating system and ensured internet connectivity. He kept an eye on all the computers through surveillance. Feng Yuanxing visited Tang Rui in his office and inquired, "Boss, should we purchase our company's CAD software, 3D modeling tools, or computational fluid dynamics software?" Tang Rui pondered before suggesting, "Why not compile a list of their most commonly used software and their familiarity with each? Then provide me with the statistics." Feng Yuanxing promptly returned with a handwritten list detailing the software each person used. Tang Rui reviewed the list and set Celia to work on cracking the software. Authenticity was a concern. Tang Rui preferred not to risk using expensive foreign software laden with potential vulnerabilities. Celia efficiently cracked the software, not only making it fully functional but also improving its simulation calculations speed through cloud computing resources. Each person received 0.02% of a server's computing power, eliminating the need for data waiting. The company's foundation was established within a day. Tang Rui granted the employees a day's rest, returning to his job as usual on Monday. That evening, he resumed his drone hobby. With the company operational, it was time to launch a flagship product. Having already tested drones during an aeromodeling event, Tang Rui planned to upgrade and replicate them for a product line that could detect and attack. Now, he intended to upgrade his drones. Tang Rui's intention was to fly the drone over the sea and capture footage. However, the radar's lack of activity frustrated his efforts. To explore more, he directed the drone toward a nearby island. As he observed the screen, the radar detected an unknown aircraft at a higher altitude. Tang Rui initiated a careful chase, making sure to maintain a safe distance to avoid detection. After 5 minutes, the drone caught up with the aircraft, and Tang Rui activated its electro-optical system, displaying the plane's shape on his screen. Chapter 56. 56. Variable Bypass Ratio. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 56. Variable Bypass Ratio. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. What the heck is this aircraft? Tang Rui widened his eyes, looking at the screen in a bit of confusion. He had never seen this aircraft before. But he was certain that this thing was the latest supersonic stealth reconnaissance plane from Yingjiang. The shape is different from the disclosed Dawn Goddess. The drone was trailing behind. Using optical systems, it captured the aerodynamic shape and structure of the entire supersonic stealth reconnaissance aircraft. Tang Rui looked at the 3D model on the screen, his brain calculating rapidly. Integrated forging technology. Supersonic scramjet engine. Long fuselage, short wings. Based on the aircraft's characteristics, he pondered for a while and suddenly thought of a Yingjiang prototype. HTV.3X Black Rain Swallow. It was said that this prototype was used for technical reserves and verification in the development of the SR.72. Outside the world, this prototype didn't have much fame and paled in comparison to the Dawn Goddess. But who could have imagined? This thing had already begun secret test flights. What the heck? Just as Tang Rui was contemplating, this darn thing unexpectedly started accelerating. He glanced at the map. Realizing they were back within the country's airspace. No wonder it was accelerating. Flying slowly would make it vulnerable to interception. Tang Rui adjusted the throttle and made the drone catch up closely. However, he quickly noticed. The drone couldn't catch up. Even though he had pushed the speed to the maximum of Mach 4.2, it was still far behind the supersonic stealth reconnaissance aircraft in front of him, which exceeded Mach 6. In less than 5 minutes, the reconnaissance aircraft completely vanished from Tang Rui's sight. Radar couldn't detect it. The optical tracking system could only capture a blurry spot. Tang Rui eased off the throttle, exiting the powered state, allowing the drone to cruise at subsonic speeds. He was quite frustrated. It wasn't for lack of effort on his part. The main issue was the engines. Turbofan engines and supersonic scramjet engines were on different levels. An upgrade to the engines was necessary. Tang Rui had decided that upon his return, he would reinforce the drone's engines. 3 in the morning. He forced himself to stay alert, controlling the drone's landing. Upon arrival, he looked at the system panel. The drone's experience points had already reached their limit. Item. Perfect Reconnaissance Drone +4, Experience. 87363/26000, Upgradable, Enhancements. Fuselage, Avionics, Engine, Power Source, Traits. High Precision Scanning, Origin Points. 5.64, Enhanceable. Without hesitation, Tang Rui clicked on the upgrade button. A blue light flashed. Upgrade completed for the drone. However, this time, the drone's body didn't change, it merely gained an additional trait. Enhanced Stealth Performance. Looking at the experience bar, Tang Rui found he could continue upgrading. Clicking again. Another blue light flashed. Upgrade completed for the drone. Item. High Performance Stealth Reconnaissance Drone +6, Experience. 3363/. Non-upgradable, Enhancements. Fuselage, Avionics, Engine, Power Source, Traits. High Precision Scanning, Enhanced Stealth Performance, Weak Radiation Signal, Origin Points. 5.64, Enhanceable, 2 consecutive upgrades. The prefixes and attributes had changed. 2 new traits were added. And it entered a non-upgradable state once more. Seeing the drone's brand-new system panel, Tang Rui fell into contemplation. Based on previous upgrading experiences, if he wanted to raise the drone to level 7, he needed to enhance its equipment. Moreover, he needed to enhance all equipment before leveling up. The drone wasn't a straightforward device. Its components and systems were numerous. A comprehensive enhancement might require dozens or even over 100 origin points. Thinking this over, he felt a bit speechless. This required an excessive number of origin points. Let's enhance the engines first and see how things go. Deciding not to worry about it too much, Tang Rui chose to enhance the engines. He selected the engine enhancement. Instantly, several options appeared. Structure enhancement, material enhancement, turbine enhancement, combustion chamber enhancement, compressor enhancement, and nozzle enhancement. Among them, structure enhancement and material enhancement required 5 origin points each, while the rest only required 2 origin points. After considering, Tang Rui chose structure enhancement. Material enhancement was also important. However, the issue was that even if he enhanced the materials, he'd have to start from scratch. Whether he could produce results was uncertain. Structure, however, was different. After enhancement, he could directly apply a 3D scan to it. So, for him, enhancing the structure would be more beneficial. Whoosh! With a faint light, enhancement was complete. The structural enhancement of the engine wasn't externally visible. He placed the drone onto a car, drove home. By the time he arrived, it was almost 4 o'clock. His original drowsiness had vanished. Staying up is harmful to the body, but I'll pull an all-nighter. Muttering to himself, he took the drone to the basement. Let's get to work. Setting the drone on the workbench, he picked up tools and started disassembling the engine. He wanted to know What exactly was the situation with the enhanced engine structure? Half an hour later, one engine had been completely disassembled by him. Holding a 3D laser scanning device, Tang Rui began scanning the engine from all angles. On the computer screen next to him, as he scanned, the 3D model of the engine slowly appeared. After completing the scan, he looked at the engine structure on the computer. At first glance, he noticed a problem. The overall structure of the engine now was overly complex. This is a variable bypass ratio structure combining single-dot spool, turbojet, and twin-dot spool, turbofan. Tang Rui examined carefully and found the engine's overall structure had undergone significant changes. Especially the variable bypass ratio. This could be considered a sort of unconventional advanced technology. What is bypass ratio, you ask? Simply put, it was the ratio of airflow between the fan's external bypass and internal core of an engine. Current aircraft engines had fixed bypass ratios. The F.22's engine, for instance, has a bypass ratio of 0.29. As for our J.10 and J.15, the bypass ratio falls within the range of 0.6 to 0.8, but the exact figure is unknown. Now, here came the question. Was a higher bypass ratio better, or a lower one? The answer depended on the situation. A higher bypass ratio was better for aircraft that didn't need supersonic cruising. For aircraft that would go into a supersonic cruise, a lower bypass ratio was better. That was a general idea. Understanding this much was sufficient for most. Now, what about this advanced technology of variable bypass ratio? When cruising at subsonic speeds, the engine would operate in a high bypass ratio mode. Additional air enters the combustion chamber, promoting more efficient fuel burning, increasing thrust, and reducing fuel consumption. Upon reaching supersonic speeds, the valve would close, allowing only a small amount of air into the external bypass to manage cooling and enhance combustion. This change increased the engine's thrust-to-weight ratio and also saved fuel. Chapter 57. 57. Design Speed Mach 8. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Chapter 57. Design Speed Mach 8 Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. After Tang Rui came to the company on Monday, he gathered all the staff. Today's meeting is to determine the company's main tasks, he announced. A 3D model of a drone appeared on the projection screen in the conference room. This model was an enlarged version of his drone. Its size had increased from 2 meters to 12 meters. He had already conducted the wind tunnel simulation test. Last night, while he was sleeping, he had asked Celia to assist him in testing it. This endeavor had consumed his efforts since Friday night when he was left trailing behind Jiang's Black Swift until he could no longer even see its navites. First, he had to work out the engine structure, then proceed with designing the body. If not for Celia's assistance, he could have burned the midnight oil for a month, and yet it would still be questionable whether he could complete it. This drone is our next target, Tang Rui pointed at the 3-dimensional model of the body and concluded, observing the reactions of everyone present. Tang Rui didn't grasp the technicalities, he just found this drone visually appealing. Those who were genuinely knowledgeable about the field were left in astonishment. Share your thoughts, Tang Rui prompted the individuals who were dumbfounded. President Tang, what's the maximum speed of this drone? One of them inquired. In my vision, this drone can reach a maximum speed of Mach 8, he disclosed. Gasps filled the room, and the crowd fell silent. President Tang, what materials do you intend to use for this drone's body? Another inquired. Tang Rui brought up the issue of material availability, recognizing that it was a key concern. The problem was not that these materials didn't exist. Indeed, it was that these materials were highly classified. This was due to the fact that this material was exclusively employed in the construction of intercontinental ballistic missile warheads. Material concerns aside, you don't need to worry about the materials, engine, or equipment. Your next step is to complete its internal design. Any questions? Feng Yuanxing inquired. President Tang, have you secured a buyer for this drone? Feng Yuanxing further probed. No need to fret. Once it's built, buyers will naturally emerge, Tang Rui calmly reassured. Tang Rui held no apprehensions about this aspect. Even if no one made a purchase, it was fine. After all, he could generate income from alternate sources. He wasn't solely dependent on this venture for revenue. What he aimed to do was establish the company's reputation through this drone. Feng Yuanxing seemed to have more to say, but ultimately withheld his words. And so, the meeting promptly concluded. Everyone returned to their tasks. The design process for a drone, particularly its internal structure, was far from straightforward. Tang Rui provided structural details for the body, and nothing more. This team of individuals had to contemplate the internal layout. Center of gravity allocation. Symmetrical equilibrium along the central axis. Equipment functionality under conditions of high speed and temperature. Numerous factors necessitated consideration. Even a single aspect was capable of causing them a headache. Tang Rui paid little mind to this. Following the delegation of tasks, he left the company premises and went to share tea with Senior Zhang. The tea consumption was a guise. In actuality, he had placed an order for parts. Senior, I trust one haven't disrupted your work, Tang Rui greeted Zhang Jipeng with a smile. Alright, what's the matter this time? Zhang Jipeng inquired, seemingly resigned to the fact that Tang Rui's visits were never trivial. Zhang Jipeng had indeed made some profits from the police drone project. However, the issue was Tang Rui's apparent indifference to every other aspect. Training police drone pilots, drone maintenance, and part replacements, Tang Rui took care of it all. To be honest, was the profit from these operations even worth the trouble? If it weren't for Tang Rui diverting all the post-production requirements from the police to their company, their earnings from this endeavor would have been meager. Senior, can't one pay you a visit without any ulterior motive? Tang Rui remarked while taking a seat. A visit? Didn't you say something similar the last time you visited your teacher? Zhang Jipeng recalled. You're right, I did, Tang Rui admitted. After a brief exchange of pleasantries, Tang Rui presented Zhang Jipeng with a list containing an array of accessory models. There were landing gear components. A uniquely shaped fuel tank. Furthermore, there was an elaborate structural beam. These items were all related to aircraft components and parts. Next to these components, their performance specifications were listed. Senior, take a look at these components. Can your factory manufacture them? Tang Rui inquired. Sure, let me examine this, Zhang Jipeng agreed, taking the list and scrutinizing it. The more he examined it, the deeper his frown became. After a while, he looked at Tang Rui with a perplexed expression, asking, Junior, are you here to make a mess of things? No, why would I create chaos? One genuinely wished to order these parts, Tang Rui responded, feigning innocence. You're pretending. Are you not aware that only Sci-fi has a hydraulic press of this caliber? Do you think Senior owns 100,000-ton forging hydraulic press? Zhang Jipeng retorted irritably when referring to the immense requirements of the structural beam. Not at all, Tang Rui maintained a facade of ignorance. You're playing innocent. Do you not understand that this level of hydraulic press exists solely at Sci-fi's facility? Zhang Jipeng persisted. You're right, my mistake, Tang Rui conceded. Zhang Jipeng's frustration continued as he went through the list, pointing out the performance requirements and lambasting Tang Rui for his audacious demands. True, it was accurate. Tang Rui did not contest it, instead, he listened with a smile, occasionally nodding in agreement. You must be bored and decided to have some fun at my expense, Zhang Jipeng concluded, observing Tang Rui's smile. No, truly, that's not it. This is the latest drone design from our company, Tang Rui stated, producing his phone and displaying the three-dimensional structural blueprint of the body to Zhang Jipeng. Upon viewing the blueprint, Zhang Jipeng fell silent. The blueprint was meticulously professional. All parameters were meticulously detailed. It even included wind tunnel simulation data. Given the exhaustive nature of the parameters, the wind tunnel simulation alone would have incurred a cost of millions. Junior, are you serious? Zhang Jipeng inquired, genuinely puzzled about Tang Rui's intentions. Which private company would be researching a hypersonic stealth drone of this caliber? Absolutely. Why else would the parts one require necessitate such high performance? The performance must be superior. Beyond Mach 6, inadequate performance would lead to disintegration, Tang Rui responded. He had no alternative. While he could manipulate the other materials for the body and reinforce it using the system interface, he was determined to construct an authentic version. This was no minor drone. Small and large drones demanded drastically different material performance for the body. Material procurement was manageable for his smaller drone, laboratory resources were sufficient. For a drone of this magnitude, the one-piece forging technique was indispensable to withstand supersonic flight. Few such machines existed nationwide, and their usage was meticulously documented. Hence, a transparent approach was crucial. Let me assess this, Zhang Jipeng stated after processing Tang Rui's explanation. He contemplated which components could be sourced and which were unattainable. Swoosh. 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 Zhang Jipeng retrieved a pen and began to annotate the list. Chapter 58. 58, Sir, I really have a small problem. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 58. Sir, I really have a small problem. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Our factory can produce these parts. I can help you acquire them, Zhang Jipeng stated, holding the list of components. Regarding the rest, there is little I can do. You will need to devise a solution on your own. Tang Rui examined the parts that were marked off above. They consisted of landing gear, tires, sensors, and motors, among other less significant components. Nevertheless, this was already quite favorable. Certain items were beyond their company's production capacity, necessitating orders from other manufacturers. This was already substantial assistance. I'm sincerely grateful for your kindness. In the future, Senior, if you require anything, feel free to inform me anytime, Tang Rui genuinely expressed. Alright, these parts are not crucial. If you need them, they can be manufactured within a week. However, I won't assist you in obtaining these until you secure the other parts first, Zhang Jipeng said solemnly. These components were not small-scale items or ordinary police drones. The landing gear alone held a value of millions, with a total price that almost breached 10 million. These parts couldn't be classified as insignificant. Hence, unless Tang Rui dealt with the other components, Zhang Jipeng would not provide assistance. Why begin halfway? If the remaining accessories were absent, it would be pointless. Don't worry, Senior. I have a solution. After Tang Rui concluded, he checked the time. There was still half an hour until lunch. He intended to treat Zhang Jipeng to a meal. However, he declined since he had a meeting in the afternoon. Nonetheless, it wasn't a big issue. He would call his professor over the weekend and invite Senior Zhang to dine out. Leaving Senior Zhang's place, Tang Rui drove directly to the high-speed rail station. He was headed to the National Defense University of Science and Technology. He should have gone yesterday, but he wasn't in the right mood due to staying up the night before and a busy day afterward. Now that he was well rested and had sorted out his matters, he took a car to the university. Traveling from Jinling to Changsha by high-speed rail would take a little over 4 hours. Starting now, he could reach Changsha in time for dinner. Prior to getting in the car, he made a call to Professor Yu, notifying him of his visit. He didn't divulge the reason, merely stating that something had come up. Professor Yu didn't press further and requested the train number to arrange a pick-up. It was past 4 in the afternoon when Tang Rui emerged from Changsha Station and contacted Professor Yu. "Hello, I'm Tang Rui. I've exited the station. Alright, I'll be there shortly. Please wait." In under 2 minutes, a military vehicle pulled up in front of Tang Rui. "Are you Tang Rui?" "Yes." "Get in the car." Tang Rui boarded the vehicle, glanced at the soldier at the wheel, and asked curiously, "Are you Professor Yu's driver?" "Yes, I'm probably older than you. You can call me Brother Shen." "Okay, Brother Shen. Is your schedule usually hectic?" "It's manageable. Sometimes busy, sometimes unusually free. I've heard that army drivers are highly skilled. Is that true?" "Not necessarily. It depends on the specific branch. Generally, field troops have exceptional driving skills. Most drivers are level 2 or even level 1. Regarding people like us, driving skills aren't a strict requirement, nor do we have to undergo assessments. As long as the driving is reasonably decent, it suffices." "Is that so? Brother Shen, how skilled are you?" "Special grade 1." Tang Rui raised an eyebrow. He probably shouldn't have asked. Given that he chauffeured such high-ranking figures and an academician, his driving skills couldn't be lacking. Soon, the Audi pulled into the National Defense University. They parked the car and proceeded to the office building. "Report. Enter. Leader, Tang Rui has arrived." "Good, Shen, you can take a break." "Understood." In the end, only Professor Yu and Tang Rui remained in the office. Professor Yu smiled and gestured for him to sit. "Take a seat. No need to be too formal. You look even better in person than in the photo." "I'm not photogenic, and I can't Photoshop my ID photos." Tang Rui joked. "Tell me, why the rush this time?" Professor Yu smiled, not taking Tang Rui's comment to heart. "Sir, I'm here to give you a gift." Professor Yu's expression froze momentarily. What was going on? Was he attempting to set him up? "You can't do that. Are you trying to trap me?" "Sir, take a look first." Tang Rui retrieved his phone and played the drone footage recorded the previous day. Initially perplexed, Professor Yu's expression changed the moment he spotted He Yuyan. His gaze remained fixed on the screen, and his demeanor grew unusually serious. A few minutes later, the video concluded. "Provide me with the details," Professor Yu requested. "Alright, here's what happened. The night before last, I tested the drone." Tang Rui detailed the events of the previous night to Professor Yu, withholding nothing. "Very well, you've done excellently. Did you retain the radar's scan feedback data?" "Absolutely. Before it accelerated, I deliberately guided the drone to perform a comprehensive scan and exploration of it. This represents its radar cross-section data, while this pertains to the laser radar's detected data. I've also constructed a 3-dimensional model. Here, we have the infrared data for the engine's exhaust. And this shows the change in the enemy's engine infrared data after acceleration." Tang Rui opened one folder after another, revealing an abundance of meticulously recorded data. All this data was derived from his continuous tracking and scanning of the target. Good, good. Professor Yu was visibly excited as he reviewed the data. These findings were of paramount importance. They were also extremely valuable. Of all the data, the 3D model data and radar cross-section data held the most significance. Does anyone else know about this information besides you? Other than me, only you are aware. Alright, wait a moment. I need to make a call. Professor Yu picked up the red secure phone on the desk and dialed a number. Within 10 minutes, personnel from the classified department entered the office. Tang Rui, copy the information onto this portable hard drive. Professor Yu handed a portable hard drive from the confidential department to Tang Rui. Of course. Tang Rui nodded and commenced the data transfer. Once the transfer was complete, the portable hard drive was placed in a secure briefcase and taken away. Where it went after that was beyond his concern. Let's go. Time for a meal. Professor Yu patted Tang Rui's shoulder with a smile. As they headed to the cafeteria, Professor Yu urged Tang Rui not to disclose this to anyone. Tang Rui wasn't foolish enough to blab about such sensitive information. In the meantime, Professor Yu reassured him that he had performed commendably. Rewards were likely forthcoming, but he needed to await verification before getting too anxious. Following dinner, Professor Yu initially wanted to arrange accommodation, but Tang Rui declined. Sir, I'll be heading back shortly. Is it that urgent? I'm here simply to present you with a gift. Had I not stayed up the night before last, I'd have come yesterday. Alright then, I won't detain you. I'll get in touch when there's news. Any other concerns? If there are, I'm here to assist, Professor Yu said casually. In response, Tang Rui produced the parts list. Sir, there is actually a minor issue. Professor Yu nodded and listened attentively. Chapter 59. 59, Something's Wrong Tonight. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 59. Something's Wrong Tonight. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. The next night, after finishing his dinner and changing into his sportswear, Tang Rui initiated a video call. Are you done with your work? Li Shuyao asked as she picked up the video call, observing Tang Rui in his sportswear. It's almost done. The remaining tasks are not my concern. I'll just wait for updates at home, Tang Rui replied nonchalantly. He had completed his tasks and was now awaiting further information. Academician Yu had assured him the day before that he would help devise a solution to the parts issue, allowing Tang Rui to focus solely on research and development. Okay, then wait for me. I'll go change my clothes, Li Shuyao said. Alright, Tang Rui agreed. He placed his phone on a stand and began to stretch his body. He hadn't had time to exercise over the past couple of busy days. Before long, Li Shuyao returned to the camera after changing her clothes, sporting yoga pants. This caught Tang Rui's attention. What are you looking at? Li Shuyao asked. Your shoelaces are untied, Tang Rui responded. Li Shuyao checked her shoelaces, but her line of sight was obstructed, and she didn't see any issue. Tang Rui bent down to take a look and confirmed that her shoelaces were indeed untied. By the time Li Shuyao finished tying her shoelaces and stood up, Tang Rui had resumed his exercise routine, avoiding any sideways glances. With nothing else to comment on, Tang Rui diligently exercised alongside Li Shuyao through the video call, his gaze fixed on the screen. An hour later, the video call concluded, and Tang Rui headed straight for the bathroom to take a shower. He had worked up a sweat and needed to freshen up. 40 minutes later, Tang Rui emerged from the bathroom and settled onto the sofa, his gaze deep and composed. In this moment, the electromagnetic signals in his brain were operating 20% faster than usual, significantly enhancing his logical thinking capacity by 80%. His focus was on a serious question. What kind of equipment could be assembled using silica gel, a vibration motor, a heater, and a thermos flask shell? After a while, Tang Rui snapped out of this intense epiphany and returned to his normal state. He changed back into his work clothes and headed to the basement, where he began dismantling a laser 3D printer. Equipped with a 3D scanning device, Tang Rui scanned each part after removal, ensuring even screws weren't overlooked. Despite the tediousness, this meticulous approach was essential to ensure smooth assembly and prevent any issues down the line. Although laborious, this process was necessary. Missing even a single screw during assembly could result in significant setbacks. Tang Rui continued this painstaking work, recording every detail about the equipment's structure and assembly. The more intricate the equipment, the greater the demand for precision during assembly. Sometimes, even with blueprints and components, the assembly process could be challenging, as certain critical details might not be outlined. While foreign enterprises often struggled with these complexities, Tang Rui pressed on undeterred. Working until 11 o'clock that night, he had managed to dismantle 1/3 of the equipment. The remaining components posed more challenges, prompting him to defer their handling until the following morning. With his subconscious learning device in place, Tang Rui retired to bed. Over the subsequent days, Tang Rui continued his routine of daytime work at the company and nighttime equipment disassembly and assembly in his basement. His evenings were dedicated to exercise and studying during sleep. The tranquil rhythm of his days remained unbroken. However, beneath this placid exterior, undercurrents of change were at play. In military airfields across the central region and coastal areas, nightly takeoffs and landings of early warning aircraft were a common occurrence. These were accompanied by J.16D electronic warfare aircraft, hinting at significant shifts underway. On a particular night, after Tang Rui's exercise and shower, an urge to step outside and stroll struck him. Bringing along a drone, he ventured to a nearby hill to fly it. Ever since upgrading the drone, he hadn't flown it. Tonight presented a chance to test its capabilities, especially with the enhanced engine structure and variable circulation system. Seated on an observation deck chair, Tang Rui engaged the drone's throttle. The engine roared to life, propelling the drone skyward with a trail of flames and a Mach ring. This feels distinctly different, Tang Rui mused, guiding the drone through the sky while experimenting with various maneuvers. Notably, the thrust felt significantly improved after the engine enhancement. As he flew the drone, Tang Rui's gaze caught the night sky. Early warning aircraft accompanied by J.16D electronic warfare planes took off in formation from central and coastal airfields. Perplexed by this unusual arrangement, Tang Rui adjusted his drone's flight path for an optical scan of the sky. Although his radar couldn't detect certain aircraft, the optical system might fare better. After a 5-minute scan, nothing unusual emerged. It appeared that the current flying formation consisted solely of early warning aircraft and electronic warfare planes. Perhaps it's a drill, Tang Rui speculated, deciding to continue flying his drone over the sea. With the upgraded engine's improved fuel efficiency and thrust-to-weight ratio, he contemplated testing its limits around an island in the East China Sea. Activating the radar wave interference system, Tang Rui set the drone on an autonomous cruise mode. The system, acquired through a previous upgrade, bolstered the drone's stealth capabilities considerably. Unperturbed by any radar scans, the drone remained nearly invisible to detection, except through optical means. Back at his observation post, Tang Rui settled into his chair, snacking on melon seeds. The drone's flight wasn't particularly engaging, so he had brought along a variety of foods to pass the time. Not long after, a warning sounded on the drone's screen, capturing Tang Rui's attention. Curious, he examined the warning. "What's happening now?" he murmured as he tapped the screen to view the alert target. An early warning aircraft flanked by 4 electronic warfare planes were flying at an altitude of 13,000 meters. Tang Rui scratched his head, puzzled by this development. Adjusting his drone's flight, he initiated an optical scan toward the sky. While he suspected J.20 fighter jets might be present but undetectable by radar, the optical system might prove more effective. The optical scan lasted 5 minutes, revealing nothing unusual in the sky. It seemed the flying formation indeed comprised an early warning aircraft and electronic warfare planes, no hidden fighter jets. "Perhaps it's just a routine exercise," Tang Rui muttered, dismissing the situation. He refocused on flying his drone over the sea, keen to test its improved capabilities. He soon returned his attention to the drone's screen, munching on melon seeds and sipping a drink. While drone watching could be dull, Tang Rui's prepared snacks added some enjoyment to the experience. Unexpectedly, another warning appeared on the screen within 10 minutes. Tang Rui groaned as he inspected the new alert. "What's going on tonight?" he grumbled to himself, clicking the mouse to examine the details. Upon seeing the flying formation displayed on the screen, Tang Rui was left dumbfounded. Another early warning aircraft and 4 more electronic warfare planes. "This is getting crazy," he exclaimed, puzzled by the unprecedented situation. His drone's location was in the East China Sea, not far from the Yellow Sea. Chapter 60. Gossip. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 60. Gossip Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. The flying formation. How did they all arrive at this location? Fly a little further, and you'd be out of territorial waters. Tang Rui frowned, set down the melon seeds in his hand, and adjusted the drone's altitude. The drone soared to an altitude of 18,000 meters and silently followed. Lai had no other option. This was the first time he had encountered a flying formation, so he didn't take it seriously. However, it was impossible for him not to feel curious when encountering the same flying formation for the second time. Therefore, he observed from a distance to see what was happening. Was the Stargate about to open? So, was this a planned event? He couldn't comprehend it. Crack. Crack. Tang Rui gazed at the screen and resumed eating melon seeds. On the opposite side. Inside the Air Force Command Center. On the large screen, the locations of various military flight formations and all the fighter jets in the country were displayed. Among them, 3 formations garnered the most attention. These 3 formations all comprised early warning aircraft and electronic warfare aircraft. This is the dock. Contact Fishing Team Number 1. Please report the situation. The command center's head picked up the microphone and inquired. This is Fishing Team 1. No signs of fish thieves detected. Doc acknowledged. Maintain alert status. Fishing Team 1, understood. Maintaining alert status. The command center head lowered the microphone and furrowed his brow while gazing at the large screen before him. A week had passed. Since they received the news and that information, they began making preparations. Every night, 3 early warning aircraft and 12 electronic warfare aircraft organized into 3 groups patrolled the skies over the nation. One group at the northern border, another in the central region, and the last along the coast. Logically speaking, in case of any event, it was improbable for them not to detect it. After all, with the data from the files and the radar parameter adjustments, they would inevitably be detected if the opposing party dared to intrude. Did the opposing party possibly know the news? So they didn't proceed. That couldn't be the case. In the blink of an eye, half an hour elapsed. Tang Rui finished half a bag of melon seeds and consumed quite a bit of drink, yet he hadn't noticed any extraordinary occurrences. The drones had trailed the flying formation for half an hour. Nor did he observe any training activities. This left him somewhat bored. He turned around and fetched a small backpack beside him, taking out a melon from it. Crack. He forcefully split it in 2. The melon divided into halves. Tang Rui chose one half and started eating. It smells so good. He smacked his lips while eating. At that moment, the silent flying formation suddenly altered its pattern. The 4 J.16D aircraft simultaneously adjusted their directions. One surged forward. One veered left. Another moved right. The last one retreated. Considering their flight paths and attitudes, they traced an extensive arc through the air. Tang Rui halted mid-chew. He swiftly set down the cantaloupe, wiped his hands, and began steering the drone to follow them. Doc calling, Fishing Team 1, fish thief identified. Bogey approaching our territory at Mach 3.6, altitude 18,000 meters. Fisherman dispatched, estimated contact in 32 seconds. The message relayed by the early warning aircraft was transmitted to the command center. A red dot appeared on the massive screen. The red dot advanced from the sea toward China. Dock acknowledged. Execute as planned. Fishing Team 1 understood. After the chief finished speaking, he promptly alerted Fishing Teams 2 and 3 to prepare. Upon receiving the news, the 8 electronic warfare aircraft from both formations also organized themselves. From the large screen, the day's end was visible. The 12 electronic warfare aircraft mapped a straight line on the screen. This line coincided with the trajectory of the red dot. On the other side, the Black Swift's pilot communicated with the base. Base, Hawkeye is about to enter the wasteland. Requesting augmentation activation. Base received. Hawkeye augmentation approved. With the approval received, both pilots exchanged glances and pushed the throttle. Boom! The supersonic ramjet engine spewed long exhaust flames, propelling the entire Black Swift into acceleration. The dials on the gauges started ticking up. 3.7. 3.8, 3.9. Just as the Black Swift reached Mach 4, several blips appeared on the airborne radar. According to the data analysis, the radar detected the J.16D electronic warfare aircraft. Calling base, Hawkeye has entered the wasteland and spotted Howling Wolf electronic warfare aircraft, 37 kilometers away from us. The base. BZZ. KZZ. Eagle. BRRT. At that moment, radio communication abruptly cut off, and all signals distorted into static. Simultaneously, cockpit instruments also malfunctioned. Modern electronic warfare far surpassed its predecessor from the last century. Incredibly potent electromagnetic signal interference. It caught He Yuyan off guard. Modern fighter jets grew increasingly reliant on electronic systems. Conversely, when electronic systems faltered, the risk of catastrophe rose. For instance, the synthetic aperture radar was considered to be immensely powerful. Wearing his helmet, he enjoyed a 360-degree field of vision. But when radar waves distorted, the data sent back would be corrupted, and imaging quality would plummet. Everything became a mosaic. The two pilots hadn't reached that stage of looking as if they feared nothing, yet feeling nothing within. Thus, at this juncture, they felt considerable frustration, unease, and frustration. Quick, cease acceleration and ascend. Base, this is Hawkeye. We're under jamming. I repeat, Z. Z, however, no matter how they called, radio transmissions remained drowned in static. Captain, what's the plan? Don't panic. We're currently at Mach 4, flying at 21,000 meters. At this height and speed, not even missiles can catch us. Once we exit the wasteland, and the electronic suppression is lifted, things will return to normal. The captain, obviously experienced, quickly devised a solution after calming down. Indeed, the Black Swift's speed and altitude ranked the highest in aviation. Even under electron suppression, equipment and instruments suffered interference and dared not accelerate further. Nevertheless, with their current velocity, no aircraft could match theirs. Not even missiles. What if they launch supersonic missiles? Don't fret. In our current scenario, they can merely suppress us electronically at most. Launching missiles is out of the question. If they were dealing with a reconnaissance plane from a smaller nation, it would have been down swiftly. However, the Black Swift differed. Attacking them would be problematic. As for electronic interference, it was manageable as long as no shots were fired. Everything remained negotiable. Whoever was compelled to land depended on their strengths. Resolution could follow later. However, launching missiles was a different matter. Thus, this seasoned aviator maintained a composed demeanor. The Black Swift soared across the sea at Mach 4. The first formations for electronic warfare aircraft had already relinquished their electronic interference. Yet, the second formation's electronic warfare aircraft took over and continued the suppression. All of this. Tang Rui, who quietly trailed behind, witnessed everything. He activated the drone's afterburner and closely followed the Black Swift. Last time, the opponent flew at Mach 6. He had no other solution then. However, this time, at Mach 4, the drone could easily catch up.